as it is on the red list and inscribed on the protected species list. Throughout the Mediterranean, the spiny lobster populations have been devastated. This is likely due to overfishing. However, there are quite a few successful repopulation efforts that include conservation through MPKs and restocking. Examples of this are in Corsica, the Coulambert Island Marine Reserve. So why not here in the Côte d'Azur? That brings me to Lagostat, who are attempting to do a spiny lobster conservation effort within the Côte d'Azur. Lagostat is based off 3 pillars. Their blue biotechnology uses chitosan for medical supplies. So they're creating a new value chain from the spiny lobster waste product, as the lobster will shed its shell. They also offer high quality agricultural product, which, as we looked at before, is A, very delicious, and B, can bring lots of revenue in. And lastly, customers of today really value conservation. We look for MSC and ASC labels on our products from the sea and other sustainable labels on our food. So tying Lagostat to conservation will really help them sell their product and come to the forefront of ocean valorization. How do they intend on doing this? So they already have established a in-tank life cycle. They've already mastered the in-tank life cycle of the lobsters and already producing lobsters for customers, restaurants, supermarkets, and that. They now are also starting to harvest the shell to be able to make medical materials that they can then sell to others. So the next step is to focus on their conservation projects. They intend on using a protected area off the coast of Monaco to do so. While this is not technically a marine protected area, it is protected because ships are not allowed to go there due to military restrictions and because there's threat of rocks falling off of the side cliff here. So ships, this is a restricted area. So functionally, it is protected from all human activity, which means the ecosystem here is allowed to thrive. However, there is some major challenges in this. If they want to use this location, they first need approval from the monarchies, from the Monaco government, and especially the Environmental Directorate, Principality of the Government of Monaco. And in order to get this approval, they need to present a comprehensive understanding of both the local ecosystem and what the effects will be of introducing more spiny lobsters to the area. In order to find these effects, and I did a literature review on spiny lobster conservation. And with that literature review comes a research question. How can the current population of the European spiny lobster be determined within the Côte d'Azur region? And based on the conservation studies that we looked at in the past, we saw that catch per unit effort was a major metric that was used throughout almost all the studies. And so we believe that catch per unit effort is a very good study to be used here. Let's go over the methods for the literature review. But before we do that, let me just introduce you to a few definitions. You may be wondering what catch per unit effort is. Well, it's simply a metric that is used as a proxy for population size. It is based on the amount of individuals that can be caught for a certain amount of effort. Think of a lake. If there's few amount of individuals, you need to put a lot of effort to catch them. But if there's a lot of individuals, you don't need to put much effort in to catch them. It can be measured in number of traps used, time it takes to catch, or square meters of nets. As long as the method of catch is the same, you can calculate the catch per unit effort. Lastly, what is a repopulation program? Repopulation of a species. It is an effort to increase a diminished population of a species back to historical levels. So this is how I did my literature review. First, I looked at a metadata study on Scopus, looking at the major subjects. Then, taking into account Lagostat's needs, I grouped those subjects together to make my review more efficient, and then split them up into my own topics. First, looking at the ecology of the spiny lobster and its behavior, as well as its conservation effort. This also includes monitoring techniques. Let's see what I found. So obviously, I'm not going to show you everything I found. That would take quite some time, but I will show you the main key points. So when looking at habitat, we found that the spiny lobster has actually a very small home range. So a home range is the area in which the spiny lobster or an animal will live and move around. So we found that the spiny lobster's home range was 0.39 meters square, so only around 4 meters, give or take, 4 meters. Also, we found that settlement will mainly take place in porous rocks. So they really do enjoy rocky environments where they can find little hidey holes and where they stay in during the day and then they come out at night. When looking at what type of factors in the environment can affect their health, we found that environmental health had a major effect on them, on their population density, as you can see. Here we have high environmental health and high population density. Where here we have low environmental health and low population density. We did not see this effect, however, for their mean lobster size. So it does not seem to affect the size of the lobster. What does affect the size of the lobster is fishing intensity, as it introduces a selective pressure on higher sized lobsters, as they're significantly more targeted by fishermen. But it did not affect the fishing, the lobster density, sorry. Another environmental factor that was quite significant was the noise pollution for the spiny lobster. They found that spiny lobsters communicate a lot with noise, and therefore acoustic pollution tend to stress them out and change their behavior quite a bit. They also found that it had an effect on their hematoimmunological system. And unfortunately, spiny lobsters don't really have access to earmuffs, so it's not quite a solution that we can implement. Lastly, I want to do a quick overview of how CPU can be used to measure population. Here's a study that was done in Corsica on one of their repopulation efforts. At 3 different sites represented by 3 different colors, they measured the CPU of at over 5 years. These are the 5 bars, 6 years, sorry. These are the 6 bars. And they found that it increased both for numbers of individuals inside the marine protected areas and outside the marine protected area, as well as a gram per 50 meters square, outside and inside the marine protected area. So this is how CPUE can be used to really get a good idea of population. Let's explore these results a little bit. So we found that there's a lot more factors at work when trying to establish the population health of the spiny lobster than just catch per unit effort. So we want to look at where is their habitat. And to do so, we can use remote sensing. One limitation of remote sensing is that it can only identify the substrate of up to 10 meters below sea level. After that, the water column is too thick and it becomes less accurate when identifying substrate. How can we do this though? We would collect field data, which is geolocated photos and geolocated tags for different substrates, sort that in R, import it into ArcMap, then use either Landsat or Sentinel classification if you want a cheaper option, but there are more expensive options which will offer higher accuracy. And then from that, you'll get a classification map. Of course, a classification map is a type of model, so it does need to be verified with field data. Once we have the habitat sorted out, we can look at their environmental health. This is a second survey that I think is very important to really see what the effects, what the likelihood of having our spiny lobsters survive in the environment will be. So we need to look at noise pollution. This can be used by measuring noise pollution with sensors that we can look at over time. We can document the amount of fish that go in the area for fishing intensity. And we can also look at the ecological health by looking at richness, the amount of pollutants in the water, and functional biodiversity of the ecosystem. It is also worth looking at the population of octopus, as they're the primary predators of spiny lobsters, though this may be difficult. Lastly, we do need to do a population survey. So catch per unit effort is very important, and so we will still be using it. However, to bring out lobsters outside of their environment, maybe check them for disease, their size and everything, we can get some detailed information and put them back in their environment afterwards, can be quite disruptive. So one, albeit less reliable, but less destructive or disturbing method is using citizen science. Studies have shown that citizen science can be quite effective if it is supervised and if it is verified. One thing we can do is place signs like this on surveys, offering people surveys to fill out what they saw when they went swimming, snorkeling, or diving close to beaches. We could place these signs strategically close to where we know there's spiny lobster habitat. Let's conclude with a quick overview of the project. So Lagostat needs or wants to incorporate conservation into their business model. This way they can satisfy their customer values. Therefore, we asked the question, how can we estimate the current condition of population health for spiny lobsters within the Côte d'Azur? And this will help us convince the Monaco government to allow us to go forward with this project. Originally, we thought CPUE was the best idea, but now we decide to go through a three-prong approach. Habitat surveys will allow us to see where we can find spiny lobsters. The environmental health survey will allow us to see how well spiny lobsters can cope with the environment that we are trying to repopulate. And lastly, getting a baseline on their current population will really help us monitor down the road what the effects of repopulation will be. With this information, we believe that we can convince the Monaco government to sign off on a conservation and repopulation program. And that brings us to the end road of a complete understanding, hopefully, of the spiny lobster population within the area. Here's some closing statements. I'd first like to thank Lagostat for introducing me to this topic and showing me a new way of looking at conservation when mixed in with business. At first, I was very skeptical about profit and conservation going hand in hand, but I find that in certain scenarios, it can really drive conservation efforts. And this is one of those scenarios. I'd also really like to thank the Université de Côte d'Azur team. They gave me a lot of feedback, both scientifically, administratively, and of course, with the COVID pandemic, they helped to calm my nerves at sometimes. So I'd really like to thank Adine, Eric, Christophe, and Christelle for helping me with this. Here are the sources that I've used. Of course, these are not all the sources in my literature review, just the ones that I've directly referenced in this presentation. Thank you for your attention. Does anybody have questions?
I hope so. Thanks, Richard.
No problem.
Thank you for our presentation. You were just on time. Great.
Yeah.
Juliette, Steve, floor is yours.
Start?
Allez, Steve, your turn.
Okay, my first question is, what was your method for your literature review? How did you do that?
So the method I used was based on literature reviews I had done in the past. So it was very much, when I worked for the Canadian government in the past, I would have to do literature reviews for them. So the way I did it was I would just go on Scopus, first do a metadata study on spiny lobster in general. Then I'll go into each category, find the most referenced papers, and try to rely on those most. Apart from that, it was more just going in paper, see what they referenced. If they referenced any relevant papers that I think Lagostat would be interested in, then I would read those up on those as well. But yeah, I tried to be efficient at the beginning by looking at the metadata. I think I actually have, an additional slide here to show you. This is what I originally got from the metadata. So you can see there's a lot of agricultural and biological science studies. So that's the thing I looked at the most since Lagostat was interested in agriculture.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. What's the depth distribution of the spiny lobsters in the Med Sea?
So in the Med Sea, there's a significant spiny lobster fisheries kind of scattered around. Throughout the Mediterranean Sea, they're quite overfished, especially in the south of Spain, south of Italy, off of Greece as well. They have repopulation efforts in Corsica, south of Spain, and south of Italy, close to I'm blanking on the name of the city, but
sorry, maybe not clear. I was wondering, how deep do you find them? Like, well, which?
Depth. I heard the density. So it really depends on their life stage. Here I have another figure. So when they're settling, they only settle within about under 10 meters, which is why I think the remote sensing study would be useful because you can find their settling areas. And with the spiny lobster's small homing range, you can find out where you find where they can settle, then you can find where they live deeper but close by.
Okay.
As juveniles, so settle within 10 to 15 meters, but as adults and juveniles, they'll start to move down to 25 meters and 40 meters of depth.
Okay, so you don't think that there is a problem with your citizen science? You say people swimming could spot spiny lobsters, but if they live at 40-meter depths, that would be a bit complicated.
Yeah, I did actually think of that, and there's another problem with the citizen science survey in which spiny lobsters have been found to be nocturnal. So people are mostly swimming during the day; they might not see it in the night. But I was thinking there's still use in the citizen science survey if we organize it in a way that it has a bunch of pictures of different species, because people may not be able to yes, I identified a spiny lobster and 3 wrasse. They may not know the names, so they would tick off which species they found, and it will provide us more than just information on spiny lobsters. It may provide us some information on spiny lobsters, but it will also provide us maybe if they saw octopus, if they saw a lot of rocky areas. It might be nice to get a more general view on the areas that we are interested in.
Okay, thanks.
Richard, I had just one question about the proxy you're using for your population, so your catch per unit effort. Right. I wanted to know what amount of catch is required to have relevant CPU.
So it really depends on your study area. I found in the other conservation efforts, but it is true that for catch per unit effort, you do need quite a significant amount of effort put in before you start to get a result. It's not so dependent, I think, on the catch itself. It's dependent on the amount of effort you put in. Because if you put in a lot of effort and only catch 3 individuals, then you can still conclude that you have a very low population. This is why majority of the time catch per unit effort is tied to fisheries, because fisheries, they have these massive fishing fleets, and you can get data from the municipality that reports on landings at the specific docks. So a lot of time with that is how you use to calculate catch per unit effort. But unfortunately, here in the Côte d'Azur, you don't have an established lobster fishery anymore because their populations are so devastated and low. So we really need to establish our own scientific catch per unit effort, which would be catch and release with lobster traps. And it may take a few months to even start getting a few months of consistently catching lobsters to start getting reliable data.
Thank you.
Hi, Richard. Got a question on which one will I choose first? Okay, about the cost, duration, and what will be your next steps for your ideas. So if we come back on the main pillars, the remote sensing, the survey, and the population survey, did you mention the cost for that? Because I guess it's really important if we put this back in context. We are talking about a company. So it's my next question. It's why are they doing that? But it's with money not coming from a foundation. So what about the cost, the duration of this of such an idea initiative?
So I did actually think about the cost. The reason why I chose remote sensing is because you can get fairly cheap data. You can go entirely free, or maybe the price of a GoPro and a GPS would be the price of the remote sensing survey. So you would go out snorkeling, take pictures of your substrate with a GPS floating above you. That would record the picture, and the GPS would take a photo and a point at the same time. Then you could bring that into R. You can use Sentinel data, which is free. You can bring the information gathered on the field into R. And then you can use QGIS to make the classification map instead of ArcMap. It's a little bit more annoying. It's a little bit less user-friendly, but can produce exactly the same results. And then you can come up with a classification map of the area with very, very few costs. Of course, if you wanted to go higher on cost, then you can decrease the amount of time that it would take just a few swimmers to take I don't know, 500 points. Probably be good for a classification area the size of the Monaco Bay.
So just maybe, do you have some more concrete ideas of cost depending on the situation?
I don't have exact numbers, unfortunately, but I did make sure that, again, like with the survey, for example, it's entirely free. Just need to put down a few signs. I didn't look at the legality of the signs, unfortunately. That's something that slipped by me. For the only thing that could really cost us a significant amount, but even not that much, would be lobster traps. And maybe some of the equipment to look at the chemicals within the water and at certain sites. But
sorry, Richard, to cut you, I will maybe try again. Imagine that your supervisor asks you tomorrow, okay, you've got a nice idea here, but okay, give me a number. Let's see if we have the money for that.
My estimate would be under, to do all three studies, I would estimate under 2,000 to 3,000 euros.
Okay, so do you think that a company like Lacosta can afford that? And so we are just moving to my next question. So why are they doing that? Why would they do that? Sorry.
So the conservation effort is really to help improve not only their image and to make sure that they can have a premium product. So like buy this lobster, it supports local conservation efforts, right? People are really engaged in that. And then restaurants can put that on their menus, like lobsters are supported local conservation efforts. So there's really a financial aspect to this conservation effort. And then there's also the aspect of it helps them resupply their own stocks. If there's a steady, stable population of European spiny lobsters within the region, then Lagosta can expand their operations sustainably, of course. So there's really a long-term financial gain to be had from this conservation effort. And it helps their community image. For the next step would be to go through with these studies, gain the approval of the Monaco government by gathering even more literature, and then providing a concrete study to the Monaco government. And after that, we have also our baselines from these studies, and then it's the monitoring. I looked into several monitoring techniques if you want me to go into them, but I don't know how much time you want me to answer.
Okay, that's fine. Just I will finish on a more really picky question. Particularly, it's on slide 14. It's on an article by Wine et al., I think, and it's just that your it's not 14, maybe 15.
Oh.
Yes, this one. You brought it really briefly. So here you're speaking about a study monitoring the lobster density and mean size for high and low quality habitats. I'm a bit just, I would like some precision on that. What do they call high and low? Where is it?
So the way that I think they measure, the way they measured it, one caveat about this study, by the way, is it was actually done on the spotted spiny lobster in the Caribbean. Because the spotted spiny lobster and the European spiny lobster have very similar niches in the environment, we assume that the very same effect and trends will apply to this European spotted lobster. The habitat quality was quantified based on functional biodiversity and was based on biodiversity, not functional biodiversity. And I think it was because they were looking at coral reefs, they were looking at reef prevalence as well. So like,
where is it?
Like transitioning to an algae reef, or was it firmly in a coral reef? I can't remember the exact metrics.
Okay, that's fine. But it means it's not here in the Mediterranean Sea.
No.
Okay, good. Thank you, Richard.
No problem.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for a nice shoot. Okay, alors, what if we admit Falco back?
Right. Should I stop sharing?
Yes. Hello, Falco.
Hello.
Studio here. Do you want to share your screen?
Sure.
Oh, sorry, Christophe, you were not on the. You were not on it. Christophe, sorry. Can you just go ahead and ask a question to Richard if you have?
Well, Christophe, the question I had was the one you raised, regarding the economical part of Lagosta. So I had the same question, and I think Richard, you responded to what
okay. I knew that. That's why I kind of forgot you. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Falco. So you ready?
You see my screen and hear me good, right?
Yes, Falco. I'd like just to make sure if your presentation is private or not.
I think it's private, yeah.
Okay, so I will just pause the live stream, and we're coming back in